Hello my dear friends, welcome back to the channel. Summer is finally here in Canada, and it's time to graciously wake ourselves up from our winter hibernation and spark up some life in our lives. So, we've decided to head over to Lima, Peru to kick off an exciting 2-week adventure. There's something about traveling to new places and exploring new cultures that I love. There's the thrill of uncertainty, the lightening of my worries, the joy of experiencing new things, the feeling of being free. Travel just makes life seem so much more beautiful. But what exactly does it mean to be free? And why does putting myself in situations like travel create this sense of freedom and the sense of beauty? Over the next few episodes, I'm going to be exploring these ideas while I explore Peru. I'm excited to see where this physical and philosophical journey will lead me.
Your passengers from Panama will return 2:03 p.m.
Panama. Known for its famous canal, its beaches, rainforests, and its exotic sunsets. None of which we'll have time to experience today. But we've got about 6 hours to go before our flight to Lima. So let's go find some Panamanian food to eat. So, what is freedom then? Is the man who escapes the chains of his oppressor free? Or another who may roam to the ends of the earth so long as he does not utter a profanity or speak his truth? The child who hides her curiosity for life from her parents for fear of being punished, or worse, for fear of being judged, is she free? Or the same child, now an adult, successful, having everything that money can buy except time, which is rationed to her by the hands that raise her. Or the man who lives by the words, I am, his fate forever suppressed by his own existence. Is he free? Over the years, I have come to realize that freedom is an extremely complex topic that has evolved in its definition over generations. For the ancient Greeks, to be free was to be able to think and to do as one pleases. To Plato, this was a ridiculous idea. Freedom was, for sure, the ability for man to fulfill his role to the state, to the fullest of his ability, a harmony between institution and man. Then, during the Age of Enlightenment, Baruch Spinoza came along and proposed that a man is free when he exists by the necessity of his own nature and determines his actions on his own. He claimed that we become unfree when our actions or thoughts are controlled by an external entity or something we have no control over. For John Locke, along similar lines, Freedom was the power for man to do or not do something based on the preference of his mind or his will. After wandering around the old city for about 3 hours in the scorching sun, we finally got our hands on some delicious traditional Panamanian food and refreshing beers before saying goodbye to the city. Panama. We'll be back for more another day. I promise. We are now in the Barranco district of Lima, the capital city of Peru. Lima sits on the Pacific Ocean and is generally the first point for an international traveler to touch down in Peru before moving to other tourist points in the country. The climate here is pretty mild today, so we're going to head out into the city center to understand what the life of the Limeños people is like on a typical day. But first, we want to visit Huaca Pucllana, which is a sacred archaeological site located in the Miraflores district of the city. The concept of freedom, much like man, has always evolved with the context of human existence and has the opportunity to evolve further. There is an inherent assumption in the idea that freedom is the ability for man to act on his own will. That is, man's will is itself free. It can be and should be, but is it? I think that freedom exists in 4 distinct but sometimes overlapping forms. Freedom from the chain, freedom from institution, freedom from perception, and finally, freedom from the self. I think there is opportunity, especially for the modern human, to expand their ideas of freedom to include all these forms of freedom. We are now at Huaca Pucllana, an ancient archaeological site uncovered in 1981. Huaca Pucllana was built by the Lima culture, which thrived in the central coastal area of Peru between the years of 200 and 700 AD. The site consists of a large adobe brick pyramid complex that rises up to 25 meters high. It was used for religious rituals, including the burial of higher-ranking individuals, and is believed to have been built by the Lima culture between 400 and 700 AD, and then subsequently used by the Wari culture between 800 and 900 AD. This was our first glimpse on our trip into the sophisticated and advanced practices of the ancient Peruvian civilizations and the deep connection of their way of life with Mother Nature, or Pachamama as they call it. So, let's uncover the 4 forms of freedom that I touched on earlier. Freedom from the chain, the most fundamental form of freedom, is the ability to be free from political, ideological, and even social persecution. History and mythology, for the large part, is a long story about man's struggle to free themselves from their oppressors. The exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, the French Revolution, the Nazi Holocaust, modern terrorism, you name it. History is full of examples. Now, freedom from institution, on the other hand, is freeing oneself from, as Friedrich Nietzsche put it, the monster called thou shalt, that is created by the institutions that man creates himself, such as government, society, religion, money, and other constructs. Thou shalt go to school. Thou shalt find a job. Thou shalt marry within your own culture. Thou shalt worship the one God that your parents coincidentally happened to worship also. Thou shalt make financial wealth your definition of success. Thou shalt then strive towards owning a home to keep up with the Joneses and live the American dream. Thou shalt work tirelessly and sacrifice time during your youth, when you have much of it, in the hope of enjoying the extremely limited amount of it when you are in retirement. Freedom from institution is the idea that we are all oppressed in one way or another by the unnatural systems that humanity has created. Understanding that these systems are unnatural and finding ways to release ourselves from it. The third form of freedom is the freedom from perception, freeing the mind from the fear of being judged or perceived by others in ways that we consciously or subconsciously try to avoid. The anticipation of the perception created by society controls man's true will through emotions like fear, shame, and guilt. This does not require much explanation, Most of us have experienced situations where we feel the need to constrain our personalities, ambitions, and values for the fear of being judged by our peers. Finally, there is freedom from the self. This last one's a bit tricky. It is a war that man wages against himself, his being versus his mind. There are two oppressors of the freedom from self, the subconscious and the ego. And they are the most dangerous of oppressors because, like a virus, they oppress from within us, rarely being noticed. The point I want to come across here is that it is only by achieving all forms of freedom that man can truly be free, even though one might spend an entire lifetime seeking just one form of it. Almost got crushed by a bus. Are you ready?
I don't know, man. You'll find me whenever there is music.
Historically, the emphasis has always been on achieving freedom from the chain and freedom from institutions. But the world that we live in today is so much more different than that of Plato or Spinoza or Locke. The oppressor no longer makes the oppression visible, but seeks more sinister methods such as hijacking our psychologies. I am reminded of social media platforms that trap us in the ever-growing need for more likes and manipulate us to create curated versions of our lives so that we are perceived more favorably. Or politicians and institutions that turn to fake news and digital algorithms that create bubbles in which we are fed only what our profiles seem to desire, forcing an ever-growing divide between us. By creating multiple degrees of separation from us, the modern oppressor can remain hidden and create the illusion of giving man his free will. Or the overproduction and the overconsumption of information today that is shared in the guise of being educational or in the pursuit of never-ending self-improvement. The information that we consume today is parceled to us by using addictive methods that are specifically designed for human psychology. Most of us are aware, and yet we cannot overcome it. Or the knowledge and the fear that our overindulgence in short-term comfort and convenience is slowly destroying our planet. Yet, after only a moment's worry, we are back to planning our next impulse purchase to satisfy our short-term needs. Again, it is only by achieving all forms of freedom, including freedom from ourselves, that man can truly be free. I think the difference between the oppression of the past and that of the present is that our ancestors knew of their oppression while we in the present do not. Thank you so much. As we say goodbye to Lima, I remind myself that to be free, first we must acknowledge when we are not free. We must become aware of the ways in which we give up on our freedoms as a currency for the shiny things that the world tries hard to sell us. Today, more than ever before, I am reminded of the importance of practicing our courage to work towards our freedoms. For freedom is what gives life its purpose. And a life without purpose, ultimately, is a life not worth living.